Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Kanchana Banerjee. I'm an author and I write crime stories. And this is a place where I am in conversation with interesting people from different walks of life, from different professions. So do join in, subscribe to the channel, and share and leave a comment if you feel like it. Today's guest at in the podcast today of Telltale with Kanchana is an author who is extremely prolific. He has written many best-selling novels. He writes for the screen, and he has practically created the space and the respect for a genre in India, in Indian books, which hitherto was not written much in the horror genre. Please welcome Neil De Silva, author Neil De Silva, to Telltale with Kanchana. Neil, I'm so happy that we are having this conversation today.
Pleasure is all mine, Kanchana. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I know you're doing a fabulous job calling us authors and having these kinds of chats. It's so, and since we go back for
Of
so many years,
course,
we started together in a way. It's
absolutely.
a privilege to be on
Absolutely.
your. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you. So, Neil, the first book you wrote, what was the name of the first book you wrote?
It was Maya's New Husband. I released
Okay.
it in 2015,
Okay.
Jan.
Hmm. So, in 2015, when you wrote the first book, what made you choose the horror genre? Usually,
I think
people
the
would pick
genre.
up a romance or a mythology, but why horror? Why did you choose horror?
Now I'll give you a very cliched answer that it was not me who chose the genre, but the genre chose me.
Hmm.
The thing is, it's actually true because when I was writing a story, what I essentially wanted to do was I wanted to write a story. A story had occurred to me,
Hmm.
and it would not leave me for many years. Like I had the story in my mind, but it was just a very very vague kind of thing. I did not have a concrete shape to it.
Hmm.
So when it struck me, and when I decided that okay, now is the time that I have to keep everything else aside and have to write this story, otherwise it is going to eat me up.
Hmm.
So when I wrote it and when it started taking a shape, it channelized all those pent up, dark energies and phobias and fears that were within me, and those came out in the form of those words and the scenes that I created.
You know, I
So I self.
completely, I completely agree with you when you said that. Yeah, I know it is a very cliched answer, and our common friend Vish Tamija, he teases me and drags me to no end when every time we talk about books that the story chooses us and we don't choose the story. But you are absolutely right, and I think those are the best stories that get written, where you don't force yourself on the story and the story just refuses to let go of you. And like, if I'm correct, your Maya's husband has now has a sequel, Maya's New Husband, and the first book went on to become a huge best-selling book when it was a self-published book, right?
So it was Maya's New Husband, and now it is Maya's New Husband 2. So
Okay.
both were new husbands. So yeah, it it does have a sequel now. It's a
Hmm.
second book, and it was always planned as a kind of a trilogy.
Hmm.
So the third book will also be coming out next year because it's essentially the story of Maya,
Hmm.
and I have to continue it till I finish it because I have put Maya in such a lot of soup, hot water, and
Yeah.
so many troubles have given her throughout her journey that I want her also to have some, some satisfying moments, some
True.
rewards at
True.
the end of it.
True.
So yeah,
True.
it will be rounded up in the
Great.
next and the
So,
last
we
installment.
will talk about your self-publishing journey a little later. And so, in 2015, when you written this book and you published it, self-publishing in India was at its very nascent stage. So, kudos to
Yeah.
you for doing such a great job and the book becoming a bestseller. But as I said, we will talk about that part of your author journey a little later. I want to ask you a question which I am asked, very often by readers as a thriller writer. I'm often asked that, do I not get disturbed by the dark and the twisty plots I create? Do they give me migraine? Do they give me sleepless nights? So I'm going to throw the same question back at you, Neil.
It actually depends on what kind of story I'm writing at that point.
Hmm.
See, Maya's New Husband troubled me a lot. It gave me a lot of sleepless nights, and there were moments when I would write and I would not be able to continue the scene. I had to shut down my Mac and then just go in the bedroom and sleep. So there were such moments because the story was so. You can say some moments of the story were very personal also, and as I'm telling you, it was my first horror novel. So I was just filtering all these things that I had within me. They were coming on paper. So I was facing my own fears. And
Hmm.
when I wrote, it became all too real. But when I write now, when I write horror now, I'm writing more in the form of of exploring the subject, researching it, and at the same time entertaining my public with the
Hmm.
kind of story that I write. So now it's not like it disturbs me a lot. A few stories still do. Yakshini disturbed me when I was writing Sapna's Bad Connection, which took like 6 years.
Hmm.
That was quite a disturbing tale, and plus the way Sapna's Bad Connection ends, like with a heavy dose of mental illness. So I had spoken to a lot of people about it, like a particular mental illness it was. So I was talking, I spoke to caretakers, I spoke to some people who had healed themselves from that, how they went about it. So that part of it was really disturbing.
Hmm.
When I write paranormal horror stories, like when I wrote Haunted and The Spirits Talk to Me, they did not disturb me as much because they were the stories of respectively Jay Alani and Sarvajit Mohanty. So they were their stories that I was writing. So I was like kind of only the medium to write the stories. So I was not personally living through them. But my fiction tales have disturbed me more than my non-fiction
Hmm.
stories.
So, which has been the toughest book you've written so far?
Toughest. Sapna's Bad Connection, I would say, because it took me 6 years to just convince myself to publish it. And it took around 8 to 10 drafts to
Hmm.
actually get the story in the way. Because the thing is, na Kanchana, with Maya's New Husband, I was okay tackling Aghoris and I was telling a story which was strictly fiction.
Hmm.
So I did not have any problems like, okay, I'm putting out this in the world and my research on Aghoris is correct. So I was okay with that. With Yakshini also, I was okay because it was essentially a supernatural fantasy tale.
Hmm.
But when I was with Sapna's Bad Connection, that cut to the bone. It was, as I have already revealed, it was a mental illness that I was discussing. And I was talking about it in the horror sense.
Hmm.
So I was driving some horror elements into the plot, and the plot is so sensitive. It's also about a mother who is trying to reunite with her child, but in ways that are not correct. So there were so many things, so many nuances in the story that
Hmm.
could have gone
Hmm.
really wrong. But the people who have read it have not yet come to me saying that, how have you written this? I'll share this, apart from the
Hmm.
fact that one of my known friends, a director who's a director, he directs horror movies. He thought of adapting Sapna to a point, and he said that your book, I've heard about it, and I want to read it, and I want to see if I can make it into a film. So
Hmm.
I shared my book with him, and
So,
he
what
read it.
makes you you write stories, you write screenplays, you write web series, and so what is it that makes you get up in the morning and makes you excited to write? What is that?
I'll tell you. So just I'll continue that thing first, and then I'll come to your
Okay.
question. So when he read the book, he came to me in like 3 days or something. He just read it very fast, and he said that your story is nice, but I will not be able to adapt it into film because it disturbed me so much that
Oh
I can't live with this story for a year in the process. So I
my
took that
God.
as a compliment. I took
Hmm.
that as a compliment, but at the same time, it was the same feeling that it gave me also. It disturbed me, and I'll never visit that territory again.
Oh dear.
And
Oh dear. Okay, I know what you mean. Yeah.
now coming to your question about
Huh.
uh, how I choose about that. So there's a very simple question to it, and I'll be very honest and grounded about it. I write my fiction novels because they are my passion. I can't live without writing them. I write screenplays and all the other things because they are my livelihood.
Hmm.
I I don't really write screenplays out of passion. I just write it because if my book is going to be adapted, I want to be in the helm of things. I want to control how it is happening. Otherwise, if I'm giving a original story for a series, and I would like to see how it is being translated. Actually, I don't really write screenplays, but I do provide original stories to web series. A few of them are in process of being made, and I'm just supervising the screenplay department. I'm not actually writing it.
Okay, great. So, tell me, as a person who has written so many horror books, do you yourself believe in spirits, in ghosts, and in the demonic?
Very tricky question. Very tricky because if, as a horror author, I say that I don't believe, it's a problem. If I say I believe, then again, that's a problem. There's a separate lobby of people who will chase me for that.
Yes.
So the thing is, when I started out, I had no belief in the paranormal at all. Not at all. Zilch, zero. I was writing just because I wanted to give a nice, frightening story. I want to scare the heebie-jeebies of my readers. That was the only reason I was writing. But when coming down the line, like it is now 8 years that I'm writing horror,
Mm.
it's coming close to 9 years, and I've written 13 books, four more that are being in process.
Wow.
So that's a lot. So when I wrote the paranormal stories with these investigator friends of mine, at that time I came across these cases of people who had gone through situations. I was also writing a web series with a very big name channel that I will not actually mention the name of. But when I was doing that, I had to, listen to horror stories from people all over India. And this we were doing during the pandemic. People were locked in the houses, and the only way that I could meet them was via Zoom. So we would have Zoom meetings with people who have gone through paranormal
Mm.
um, situations in their lives, and whether they would be sharing it with us. So we were planning to make a series on it. The series is still in the making. So we did talk to a lot of people, and in those incidents, Kanchana, some of them were so scary that I got sleepless nights. Like people have gone through such turmoil, and
Mhm.
maybe there is a rational reason behind all the haunting that we say. There's a rational reason behind it, but it is so much under wraps. Like
Okay.
you cannot find out what may be the scientific reason behind what is happening to this. For example, there was this story of a girl, if I may share,
Mm.
because this will go into scary territory.
Yeah.
So there was a story of a 15-year-old girl who was who was studying for her board examinations. So she was in this house. It was a kind of a small town, so she had a independent homes, like so the ground floor was theirs, and on the top story someone else was staying, and that was it. There were only these two stories in the house. So at night she had this habit to study, like after midnight when everybody
Yeah.
sleeps, she would sit in the ground in a hall and study. And what started happening, a few nights later that she started this practice, she started hearing sounds from the upper story. Like, at 3 in the night also, she could hear sounds of somebody playing marbles. That tuck, tuck, tuck,
Oh my
tuck
God.
sound.
Oh my
You know,
God.
she would get that. And she thought that the children in the house up there, they are playing. And she dismissed it. Okay. And there was another sound that would also happen with it. That is of the bathroom being washed.
Mm.
So, like, who would wash a bathroom in the middle of the night, like at
True.
3 or something? So, like, a lot of water splashing, and these are houses that are not constructed with very heavy duty bricks and all. So the sound permeates. So she could hear that water being splashed and the jhadu, being put all over the floor, and all. She could hear that. Then, but she was surprised. Many days this happened. This continued to happen,
Mm.
and then finally went and asked those people, like, आप क्या करते हो? Like रात को 3 बजे इधर कंचे कौन खेल रहा है और झाड़ू कौन लगा रहा है? That now essentially in that house also there was a girl who was also a student, an older student. So she said, you are hearing noises? तो ये बात सच है कि मेरे घर में भूत है. Because she said that my house, when we took it, we had heard that it is haunted and all these things happened, but we never experienced it. But you now sitting down there, you have experienced it in our house. So
Oh my
then
God.
they left the
Mm.
house, and the noises continued to happen till the
Continued.
time also left
Mm.
the house. So such
Yeah.
things can never be explained.
Exactly. They can't be. So, what would your advice be to debut horror writers or aspiring horror writers? Because, when you started, You were almost like the forerunner in the, I mean, there were not too many Indian writers writing in English in the horror genre. Ruskin Bond has written a couple of horror stories, but they're not typical. He doesn't only restrict himself to horror. You are, an author who has only written on horror, and you have explored a variety of themes. Mythology, folklore, etc., mental illness, blah blah blah. And also, current social issues which you have incorporated in Yakshini. So, what would your advice be to debut horror writers or new authors who are venturing into this genre?
I would just like tell like what worked for me may work for being honest about the tale is very important. Like you're writing horror. I have seen people who write horror, but they at the same time they try to sanitize it. They try to think like, what will people think about this kind of scene that I've written? Let me tone it down. So that doesn't work. If you're
Hmm,
writing horror, one thing is go as much all out as you can because horror is a genre that is considered to be anyway an extreme genre. And the
hmm,
people who are reading horror, they do not need to be told everything explicitly. You have to leave things to their imagination. Horror readers are very smart. This
hmm,
you will agree with me, I suppose. They are very smart because horror plays 10% in the book and 90% in the imagination. It
hmm,
is like that. So you have to tell them the things that have only to be told, and you don't have to overkill your plot with a lot of sanitization, with a lot of explanation. All these things should be just kept aside and trust in your reader that they are intelligent. So this
hmm,
is one thing. The other thing that I would like to like what I did myself was don't imitate anybody's style when
hmm,
you're writing. Horror is such a wide genre. There are so many subgenres within horror itself, and every famous horror author has a distinctive style of their own. You take any book of any horror author, read a few paragraphs, you'll be able to tell who has written it if you have written a previous book from them because they
hmm,
have such a distinctive
hmm,
trademark kind of style.
hmm,
So when you're writing horror, aping doesn't work. In certain genres, it does work. I know because the
hmm.
readership is already built and you are cashing in on it. But in horror, no, you have to carve your own readership. People
Okay.
follow an because the author's distinctive style needs to come. So in my case, my distinctive style, though I've written different subgenres within horror, but the style that I'm most comfortable with is to write contemporary horror with a mythological backstory,
Hmm,
kind of thing that I did in Maya and Yakshini and Pishach, and which I continue to do with Curse of the Maharani, which is releasing maybe this year. So these kinds of stories means find your groove. Essentially, find your groove. Don't copy anybody, but
hmm.
find your own kind of writing.
Great. So, this brings me to your journey from being a self-published author to now being, a traditionally published with almost all the big names in the publishing industry in India today. And that's such a stupendous feat, Anil. And I must congratulate you for your perseverance and for the amazing journey that you've had. So, in 2015, when you first, self-published Maya's New Husband, you self-published it on Amazon. How did you go about, promoting your book and getting people to read your book? And to what would you attribute the success of the book?
I started the promotions way before. And I didn't start it with the mindset that, okay, I'm promoting the book. So
Hmm,
I'm a very social media savvy person, Kanchana, you know
hmm.
that. I
Yeah.
need to, keep posting on something or the other on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter all the time. And I don't actually have a planned strategy behind it. I just post when I feel like it. I'm a very
Hmm,
impulsive social media person. So
hmm,
even when I was writing Maya's New Husband, I started writing it in I think October 2000 of 2014. I started writing it then. At the same time, I also made an account on Facebook. I had made it
hmm,
a while ago, but I started becoming active. And that is where I started telling people that, okay, I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book. The name of the book is Maya's New Husband. Then I joined all these communities. The Facebook had a lot of writing communities at that time,
hmm,
writing and reading communities. I started talking to people, and I did not talk in the way that I am promoting a book, but in the way that, okay, I'm going through a journey. And this journey is I am a non author. I have
hmm,
not written anything so far. I'm starting to do this. It's a kind of a dream that I want to achieve. And I'm just writing this small thing. I don't know.
hmm.
And I also shared some chapters. I shared scenes. I told people this is what it is. So slowly a community started building up.
Yeah.
Then somebody gave me an idea that why don't you have a website, rather than posting on Facebook, because Facebook is very temporal. So put it on your website. So I had a website where I started sharing Maya plus a few other free stories I just gave. Now that created a following. So a
Hmm.
lot of people already were interested in Maya's new husband. I had this community called For Writers by
Yes,
Authors,
yes, you
which
still
I
have
also
that, right?
started. I
You
still
still
have
have it.
that. I'm not as active on it now, but I when I had it, it went like astronomically huge, 30,000
Hmm.
members.
Hmm.
And there also we used to share excerpts, all of us, and we used to, give feedback and all. Lot of it was a very dynamic community
Hmm.
at that time. Facebook was at its peak.
Yes, it was at its peak then. And also, I think, what really worked in your favor, Neil, is that, you were very authentic. And you still are. You are a very authentic social media, persona. You're very authentic about your, be it your workout, be it your writing. So when, as you said that, you started saying that I'm a non-writer, and I'm a non-author, and this is my dream. So I think that is what a lot of people kind of related
We
to and related
resonated with
with.
it. A lot of people related with that kind of thing because I think that's what makes social media tick for somebody. If you're
Mm-hmm.
already an achiever, then people have nothing to look forward to.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe people see your product, like it, buy it. But if
Mm.
people have invested in a journey,
Yeah.
if people have invested in seeing like, okay, let us see how this guy cracks it, whether he
Mm.
cracks it or not, first and foremost, let
Exactly.
us see how he does.
Exactly.
And when I did it, and it was the same thing with my fitness journey also. That's why I post my transformation videos because
Of
a lot of
course.
people think about it. Okay, this can be done. So
Yeah.
a lot of the initial readers also were of that. They were the aspiring writer community.
Huh, huh.
I got a lot of initial readers from there. So when the book ticked, when the book went on number one on Amazon and stayed there in the horror category, then a lot of people wanted to just, it was just a curiosity thing that I want
Mm.
to see why this book worked. And they read it. And when they read it, I have a few big established name authors who actually sent me their endorsements without me asking them.
How nice.
So
How
there was like,
nice.
for example, there was Faraz Kazi. I remember him still because he read my book without telling me. He bought it, legit, a copy. And then one day his email drops in my inbox and he says that I read My New Husband, I enjoyed it. And this is a line I give you. You can use it in your endorsements as you
How
wish.
nice. How nice. I think,
I got
the biggest takeaway from this is that if you're authentic, if you're hardworking, and if you're consistent, you will get to where you want to. Would you agree?
I I really hope so because there is also the factor that luck also plays a
Yes,
role.
yes, I agree.
You have to be in the right time at the right place. So
Hmm.
I think in 2015 I was in the right place, Facebook,
Hmm.
right? And Instagram happened later, so there was no Instagram, but I was online and I was also Amazon KDP because that was also just, as you said, just
Just
burgeoning at
starting.
that,
Huh. Hmm.
just
Hmm.
starting. And I was just told by my friend Varun that, okay, why are you chasing publishers? It's going to be a huge problem, which was true because I did not know any of the traditional publishers at that time. I did not even know an agent or whatever the process was.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
just thought, okay, let me put the book on Amazon KDP and let's see what happens. As I said, I don't plan things.
Hmm.
I am a very impulsive person. So one day I just thought that, okay, let me announce the name of my book. I announced, let me make the cover. I did. We made
Okay.
the cover. And one day I just thought that, okay, let me publish it. I went ahead and did it
Great.
on
So,
Amazon.
when you look back on your journey as a self-published writer, um, two questions here. What is your biggest learning? And if you were to do it all over again, would you do a few things differently?
My biggest learning as a self-published author is that you need to be very connected with your readers because that is the only way a self-published author works.
Hmm.
You have to be uh, connected in the sense when I wrote my book, a lot of people messaged me. I spoke to them. They became friends. And this is the way the karma kept increasing. This is the way my following increased. Now, there are certain authors who are very isolated from their readers. They
Hmm.
won't see their messages, they won't see uh, the trends that their book is taking. So, all
Hmm.
these things become more important to you when you're a self published author because you are essentially an entrepreneur, the word, the term
Yes,
that people
yes, I
use.
know what you mean.
if you don't have your ear to the ground, then this is not going to work. So be humble and be very responsive to your readers. So at that time, and even now, anybody who invites me to a podcast such as you have so graciously done today,
Oh,
you
come
know, I have
on.
never said no. I have never said no. I'll tell you this. Maybe barring a few exceptions where I was really tied down with something or the other, but otherwise, I have always made myself available for anything. It's
Hmm.
not just on online stuff, but even physical stuff. Means if
Hmm.
people call me to a book club event or something like that, even if only 5 people are going to attend, I'll go there.
Hmm.
I'll go there because this is, I don't have any airs that, okay, I'm a great author or something like that. I just write stories. That's it. People read it and they enjoy it. That is a reward for me. And if you're calling
Of
me
course.
because you've read my story, I'll come. So that is one learning that humility is the best
I
attitude to
agree.
have.
I so agree. I so agree. So now this brings me to the last question in today's session. So you have self-published and you continue to self-publish on and off because you said you want to hold on to
Yeah.
certain, certain creative freedom and control over your book. And of course, you continue to kind of get published by the big names. So which is a better alternative, being an indie published, self-published author or being traditionally published?
Being a hybrid author is the best alternative. Be hybrid and do both because both
Yeah,
of them have such
have their own
weighted pros.
pros and cons. Yeah.
You cannot really say that one is better than the other. Uh,
Mm.
I'm sure the other authors have already discussed this and it's been on your podcast, but self-publishing gives us a creative liberty. It gives us the kind of, you can do the kind of writing that you want to write. Plus,
Mm.
you hold on to all the rights of your book and you can promote the book as you want, right? There's nobody to tell you, like, okay, this is the way you have to market it. This is the way, today
Yeah.
you will not reveal the name of the book. You have to reveal it only next month, So these kind of things, these fetters are not there when it
Yeah.
is self-published.
Mm.
But traditional publishing, it gives you a different kind of, it puts you in a different league because
Absolutely.
it puts you on the, it looks good on your resume.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you will
I
get
know what you
invited
mean.
to fests.
True.
Probably the awards will come to you only if you are a traditionally published author, but
Yeah.
this can
Yeah.
be still, there are awards for self-published authors also, which are
Yeah.
quite legit now.
The
So,
pride
but
and prestige of being traditionally published is undeniably there. There is no question about it.
yes, so I guess that is the reason I have chosen, and I'm still publishing on both avenues. I still
Mm.
have my traditional publishing, and when I say traditionally published, that means I'm published with Penguin, with Hachette, Rupa, 3 books with Rupa, with Penguin 3 books, and Harper Collins is coming up next.
Mm.
So
Great.
these
Awesome.
I have these names. Plus, I have some of the other reputable publishing names like Vishwakarma and
Mm.
these other names. I've also published self and self again. There were like around 8 or 9 books that I've self-published, and I love this process. And I'm going to do
Mm.
both.
Yeah.
This year,
Great.
I'm going to release a few self-published books as well. Plus, my 2 traditional titles are supposed to come out.
Great.
So
So Neil, I wish you all the best and I hope you keep on creating more stories which scare the shit out of all readers and make us crawl under the covers, and I hope you write
that's my
many
job.
more books, and I hope some of your books also make it to the screen. All of us are eagerly waiting to watch. So wish you all the best for that, and thank you for being on Telltale with
Thank you so
Kanchana.
much, Kanchana. I hope I write back at you. I want you to write books also. You have an amazing writer yourself,
Thank you
and you're
so
so
much.
humble and kind to
Thank
do
you.
these kinds of podcasts. Thanks so much.
Thank
Thank you.
you.